one of the issues that we were looking at with Reimagine American Schools is helping introduce school districts to new ways of thinking about what the learning environment might look like. We also have been advocating and supporting the idea of active learning, hands-on learning, technology space and so forth. The second asset is the neighborhood in which the school resides. A unified strategy that really looks at that as an entire ecosystem rather than separate pieces.
Our chance today is to not be Pollyanna or naive, but to provide hope. The idea is that there are some extraordinary bright spots going on, not just in Atlanta, but in the surrounding region.
Schools in particular, because the school building is a trusted place within most of our communities, that the school needs to go beyond traditional education, that it needs to become involved with the distribution of health education, often with the distribution of information about food awareness and services for seniors and the like.
We're trying to solve some of the country's most pressing challenges, whether we're dealing with inequalities in wealth, racial justice, climate change, education. There really has to be this new framework for looking at infrastructure and taking what we have kind of coined as this multidimensional view on infrastructure, looking at the intersections of physical infrastructure, which you mentioned a little bit, the role of digital infrastructure, and the role of social infrastructure, really thinking about communities and family engagement there.
If you don't have access to a device, and you don't have access to internet connectivity, that is going to impact student learning. So I think we all agree that is the case. And like most districts, the CAB is working to implement and manage that ongoing one-to-one access for our students, both in the school building, but also to support learning beyond the school building at home.
The design of the Rosenwald schools from the beginning was that they were to be multi-use facilities, that they were to be used for educational purposes during education hours, but that they would be community centers after education hours. And there's, of course, the time of my doing this work, I met former students and former teachers and historians and preservationists, and I heard all of these extraordinary stories of the community coming together in these schoolhouses with performances, operettas, political events, that these did serve a broader audience.
We are working to undo centuries of systems and structures that none of us created, that we all inherited and were born into, but have a responsibility to address and adjust if we're going to see a better future for our children. If they have a hand in that process and you're co-creating and co-constructing what that decision making would look like and what that outcome is going to be, then people are less skeptical of your motives. They're less skeptical of your objectives because they were involved from the ground up versus the top down.
And my work is focused on infrastructure, which is exactly that, literally the physical infrastructure of the city and its role in shaping our lives. The physical city has an enormous impact on education and people's lives. And if you can't talk about it and acknowledge it, then it's hard to move forward.
We have to recognize that philanthropy is not a solution, but it's a factor in helping public education do better. And our foundation, the Zeiss Foundation, actually funds nonprofits across the whole state of Georgia that serve children and youth in education, health, and arts. But we've been involved in place-based philanthropy in the Edgewood neighborhood of Atlanta for over 26 years. So we have this deep community-based experience.
To that amazing initiative and development that's occurring, our Board of Education has committed to opening up early learning centers throughout our county. And we are engineering communities with school resources right in the center of those communities.
So we are in this together. The success of our children is a collective responsibility. And we know when we look at the hierarchy of needs of students that food, clothing, shelter, those things that money provides you access to are foundational if students are going to be successful in school.
Historically, these renewal and improvement initiatives have operated on separate and uncoordinated tracks. One set of efforts for the neighborhood renewal, another set of efforts to improve transportation, in yet another unrelated set of efforts for school improvement. Most often, this disjointed and disconnected approach has resulted in a status quo in many neighborhoods that is unsustainable. But often, it is our governance structures within cities that hold us back, and has resulted in decision-making that almost seems to view the community as a collection of disparate pieces rather than an integrated ecosystem. Despite the lessons we are learning from the pandemic, going back to doing things the old ways will have an overwhelming appeal. First, it's what we know. And second, because it's possible that new ways of doing things just haven't been invented, haven't been created. And that's what we're here to do today.